UFC 294, Khamzat Chimaev versus Paulo Costa was supposed to go down. Paulo Costa had to pull out due to an injury on his elbow where he got surgery. And instead, Kamaru Usman ended up taking the fight on short notice, which, of course, Khamzat Chimaev ended up winning by majority decision. And honestly, it was a very sad, I'd say, moment for Paulo Costa fans, as well as just MMA fans in general. Paulo Costa is kind of known as the fight of the night machine. Whatever card he's on, you can expect him to have fight of the night. But unfortunately, Paulo Costa does have one big issue, one thing that's been plaguing him over the past couple of years, 3 years to be exact, and that is his inactivity. The guy fights once a year. He pulls out of fights left and right. It's becoming difficult, and I say this as somebody who considers myself at one point to be a huge Paulo Costa fan. In fact, he was probably in my top 3 favorite fighters of all time. His fight against Yoel Romero remains one of my favorite fights of all time, and I would love nothing more than to see Paulo Costa be more active so we can get more fights out of him. But he just doesn't fight, and it seems like his priorities are elsewhere. So in this video, I kind of want to look at what exactly is Paulo Costa doing to his career. So we start off with where exactly this is all coming from. When did it begin? So ever since 2020, Paulo Costa has fought exactly one time each year, and he fought exactly 0 times in 2023. So actually in 2020, 2021, 2022, and then in this year, he fought 0 times, right? He was booked 3 times. He had a fight against, I believe it was Jared Cannonier, this year it was Robert Whittaker, which he pulled out of, which was supposed to happen on the same card as Makhachev Volkanovski. Then he had a fight with Ikram Aliskerov in the, I believe, UFC 291. Pereira, Blachowicz, Poirier, Gaethje, and then he had a fight just recently, UFC 294, with Khamzat Chimaev, which he pulled out of. That's 3 fights in 1 year. The guy is, unfortunately, a pull-out merchant. He struggled to put away Luke Rockhold, who hadn't fought in years, and guys, I love Luke Rockhold. He is genuinely one of the greatest middleweights of all time. People really like to disrespect the guy. At one point in time, there was a time where he was considered the best middleweight in the world, not named Anderson Silva. So I don't really like the kind of disrespect that he gets. I understand that over time, his peak kind of passed him, and then he got knocked out. But the reality is he got knocked out by Michael Bisping, Yoel Romero, Jan Blachowicz. The idea was Paulo Costa was going to come in here and ruin him. He didn't look very good. Altitude, his nose was busted. Costa couldn't get the job done. Not only could he not get the job done, he almost, I wouldn't say got finished, but he got wobbled several times in the fight as well. Now, it was one of the best fights of the year for sure. But when it comes to performances, it wasn't a very impressive performance from Paulo Costa. And of course, you can't forget the fact that this man showed up drunk to a title fight. Some people show up drunk to a job interview. That's a job interview. Imagine you're getting a title, something that says, okay, if you get this thing, you're getting a guaranteed $500,000 salary. Imagine that. Are you going to show up drunk? Is the question. He showed up drunk. According to him, we don't really have a real way to confirm whether he was just saying that as an excuse, but it doesn't change the fact that that was his excuse and he got embarrassed. Now, I think Adesanya would have beaten him anyways. Just styles make fights, and stylistically this was a very good matchup for Adesanya, a bad matchup for Costa. But either way, showing up drunk to a title fight, getting embarrassed after all the trash talking he did, not really good. And recently, if you've been following Costa on Twitter, if you've been following Costa and just in general, I'm sure everybody kind of has an idea at this point that Paulo Costa's main career focus seems to be his Secret Juice brand, which started off kind of as a joke. He brought it with him to the weigh-ins for his fight with Rockhold. It was funny, and then he became like a Twitter meme, and he was having he had one of the best Twitters out of any MMA fighters. But as time went on, it seems like this is the only thing he has real interest in. Secret Juice is Paulo Costa. Not Paulo Costa the fighter, Paulo Costa the man behind Secret Juice. And it needs to be said that he hasn't really evolved as a fighter as well. If you watch Paulo Costa against Uriah Hall and then watch Paulo Costa against Luke Rockhold, there's not really a big difference. The guys remain the exact same. He hasn't taken time to really improve himself. He hasn't taken the time to learn anything new, to be any better. We saw him take Rockhold down, which is something he rarely does, and he gassed out like within a minute. right? It's not like his wrestling's improved, his jiu-jitsu, we barely see it anyways. His striking is pretty much the same. He's a berserker, that's what makes him so fun. But the guy hasn't evolved either. It's almost like fighting is not even his main career. It's something he's just doing on the side, right? And all of these things add up together to make Paulo Costa one of the most foolish fighters in MMA. Like, that's really saying something. This guy is completely destroying his career. You went an entire year without fighting. You were healthy, all but in October, which you got injured. What about the rest of the year, right? He had a fight with Robert Whittaker, which would have been a big fight. If he had beaten Whittaker like DDP ended up doing, Costa probably would have been next in line for the title shot, right? Costa's a big name, a big star. People like him. He pulled out of the Ikram fight. I understand Ikram's not the biggest star. But then you had a fight with Chimaev and you go ahead and get injured, right? And I don't really like to attack fighters who are injured. That's not their fault, really. But it's just bad timing for him because he's already pulled out twice, and that makes it the third time he's pulled out this year. He is now officially Paulo Costa, the pull-out merchant. And so the next thing that needs to be discussed is what's next for Costa. Do we even care about him? He could be potentially cut from the UFC. Now, I was thinking this was going to be the case, but after watching UFC 294 and seeing, Paulo Costa having the camera pan to him, and it seems like the UFC isn't really ready to let go of Costa. It doesn't sound like Dana White was particularly interested in letting him go either. But if this keeps up, and I do think if he pulls out of his next fight, whenever that may be, I could see the UFC probably cutting him, right? Like, is there a reason not to? If the guy's just not fighting and he's just there, his contract's just there, why even have him? Right? Chimaev wasn't even ranked, and now Chimaev is arguably getting the next title shot. We don't know if it's him or DDP yet, for sure. But the reality is that this guy just let a unranked fighter who was unranked for the longest time for the entire year come in, show up, get the title shot, right? The thing he's been working for so long. And it needs to be brought up. This man lost to Marvin Vettori, right? I'm not trying to trash Marvin Vettori, but I'd never thought he was very good. He's like the jack of all trades, master of none, but it's hard to even call him a jack of all trades because he doesn't have any power. His striking is whatever, so that's not even a good analogy. The guy's not even a jack of all trades. And he lost to Marvin Vettori. Vettori got dominated by Whittaker and Cannonier, and I don't even consider Cannonier to be very good, right? And he got dominated outside of one round, and then he won a close decision against Roman Dolidze. Roman Dolidze, whether you think he's good or not, besides the point, this guy lost to Marvin Vettori, the guy who got dominated by Whittaker and Cannonier, and even Adesanya. You could add Adesanya to that list as well. And again, it just comes back to his failure to evolve as a fighter. He cares more about his personal brand, cares more about secret juice. And what's next for Costa? I do believe he should get another fight. It might be the rematch, or not even a rematch because it never happened, but try to rebook his fight with Chimaev. I think Chimaev's not going to take it, and Chimaev is in the right in that sense because Costa pulled out. Try to rebook the Robert Whittaker fight. I don't think Whittaker's going to take it. He was obviously very disappointed when he wanted to fight in his home country and Costa pulled out kind of last with only like a 1 month notice or whatever. He pulled out. Give him another fight, and if he pulls out, cut him. That's really all you have to do. I love Costa. I really wish that he took his career more seriously. I wish he understood he's young. He's like, 31, 32, 33 maybe. Peak of his career. He shouldn't be spending an entire year on the sidelines. He should be out there putting on fights. And at this point in time, it really does seem like the entire middleweight division's passing him by. Hamzat Chimaev, Bo Nickel, Joe Pyfer, Roman Dolidze, Robert Whittaker, DDP, Sean Strickland, all these guys are just, their stock is rising, and Costa's meanwhile is dropping, and he needs to turn it around real quick. I understand Secret Juice is kind of like his main thing now, and it's making him it's giving him a lot of recognition. I understand it's kind of funny, but you're not a businessman first, you're an MMA fighter first, and a businessman second, and I think he should really start putting his real job ahead of his brand that he just came up with a couple of years ago. And I think he needs to start being more serious about it. If not, if he pulls out of another fight, I think the best thing to do is cut him. And I'm saying this as Paulo Costa, at one point, one of Paulo Costa's biggest fans. So I guess I gotta ask you guys, do you guys agree with me? Do you think Paulo Costa deserves another shot? Do you believe he should be cut if he pulls out of that fight again? What are your thoughts on all this mumbo jumbo regarding the foolish Paulo Costa? Let me know in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.